Good evening and welcome to yet another episode of Money Control Masterclass Ideas for a New India. And the topic we're discussing today is the banner year that has been for the Indian IT industry. It's crossed the $200 billion revenue milestone and it's created 5 million direct jobs in total, with 450,000 jobs added in FY22 alone. And FY22 also saw a net addition of $30 billion in revenues. To give you a sense of context and perspective, the size of the industry itself was less than $30 billion in 2006. So it really gives you a sense of the scale and scope of the Indian tech industry. And what's more, this is set to continue. And that's why we are calling this the IT tech supercycle, because this pace of growth is expected to continue. In fact, NASSCOM expects the size of the industry to reach $350 billion by 2026. This industry is already a significant contributor when it comes to India's exports, GDP, direct and indirect job creation, and that's set to continue. But what does it mean for young engineers entering the workforce? What does it mean in terms of skilling? What do they need to do to make the best of that war for talent? To discuss all this and more, we have four very special guests: Dr. Ritu Anand, the Chief Diversity and Leadership Officer of TCS, Tata Consultancy Services, which is India's largest software exporter, one of the most valuable companies in the world. We also have Hitesh Oberoi, the MD and CEO of Info Edge, which, remember, operates India's largest job portal, Naukri. So it's certainly good times for him. We also have Sriram, Rajagopal, the co-founder of Diamondpick, which also does a lot of recruitment in the IT space, and Abhimanyu Saxena, the co-founder of Scalar Academy, which is focused on upskilling many engineers so that they can take advantage of these opportunities. Thank you all very much for joining us on Money Control Masterclass. Let me begin by starting with the war for talent itself. Have things gotten better? Have things gotten worse? Dr. Anand, perhaps you can start, and we can go to Hitesh, Sriram, and Abhimanyu.
War for talent, I have not been a believer of that war at all, because my personal belief and professionally experience also that the talent is in abundance. It's for us to look for talent where the talent is. And with the current times, and I would go back as much as 5, if not more years, that people have been looking at gig economy type of a working, flexible time type of a working, and the talent that IT industry actually started long back is not only restricted to specific colleges, specific cities, specific countries, but actually branching out in untapped territories. So the belief with which I want to start this conversation is, which I personally, really believe in, is that talent was never in short supply. It is the eyes which are looking, it is the companies which are enabling, and it is the technology which is reaching towards them, which is creating a war.
That's an interesting point. Hitesh, would you agree that talent is never in short supply? Sriram and Abhimanyu can chime in as well after Hitesh.
Well, it depends on your definition of talent. If you just go by number, sheer number, the Indian sort of, we have maybe 5,000 engineering colleges in the country today. Between them, they churn out maybe 7, 8, 10 lakh engineers every year. But I guess every year, many sort of institutions have been on record saying that not all these engineers are employable when they graduate. So companies have to invest a lot in training them and skilling them to get to a point, get them to a point where they become productive. Now, what is happening today as we speak is there was a certain rate at which the Indian IT industry was growing for the last few years. And, growth had slowed down for several companies. And then you had COVID as well. And as a result, demand had sort of gone down, and supply was also beginning to sort of stagnate or go down a little bit, because, a lot of these engineers who were graduating were not finding great jobs after campus. Suddenly, what we are seeing now, and maybe the last time we saw something like this was maybe 15 years ago, This has been a certain surge in the demand for IT stroke digital talent. And our data tells us, because we work with over maybe 8 to 10,000 IT services companies, we work with MNC dev centers, we work with internet startups, we work with all kinds of players in the ecosystem. That what we are seeing on our platform is something we haven't seen in a very long time. There's a massive surge in demand for IT talent. The number of searches for skilled IT professionals are going through the roof. On the other hand, supply is what it used to be. It's just remain the same, because you can't change supply overnight, right? It takes today in India, it takes 4 years to graduate an engineer. You can argue whether you need engineers for the kind of jobs IT services companies do offer, but that's the truth, right? Today, you can't sort of change supply overnight. And as a result, what we are seeing and is massive wage inflation on the one hand, and of course, massive attrition on the other, right? So there's high attrition, and when people quit jobs, I mean, anecdotally, I can tell you there are all kinds of crazy stories in the market, but there are people who get a 100% jump, there are people who end up getting a 200% jump, there are people who, a person getting 6 lakhs and easily get a 14 lakh job, person getting 20 lakhs could easily get a 35 lakh job today if they start looking out. Now, what's also happening is that companies are being sort of, our data is also telling us that when people switch, right, on the average, they're getting a 30-35% jump, even if they move to a similar job. So if they move to a job with similar skill requirement, also in another company, they get a 30-35% jump, which then creates a lot of issues inside the company, right? Because if you switch, you get a 35% jump, but if you remain inside the company, you sort of, you don't get that, you don't see that kind of increase. And this leads to discontent over time, and over time, it leads to higher attrition, right? So that's what we are seeing today, and it's not. There are no signs of this slowing down. At least as per our data, the trend continues. It's it started maybe 3 quarters ago, and it's only maybe getting worse. It's not getting any better. Of course, things could change going forward. There is a lot of action in the world outside, but at least today doesn't. Those stories continue.
Right.
And
Hitesh,
the last time that we saw something like this was maybe 15 years ago.
yeah. I think you mentioned that during Naukri's earnings as well, that the last we saw this kind of growth was 15 years ago. But Hitesh, actually, we are getting major FOMO hearing about these 100 and 200% hikes. A lot of journalists wish they were engineers today. But I have a follow-up question, Hitesh. The private markets, at least, or the internet companies, at least, have sort of taken a beating, at least from a stock market perspective. There are also questions of funding. So in terms of job openings, again, is there a dichotomy that you see between IT jobs and startup unicorn jobs? Is the latter perhaps showing signs of coming down, because that's where the really crazy hikes were happening last year?
Not really. See, early days, the valuations have corrected only the last few weeks, and we don't know whether this is a permanent correction or a temporary correction. The truth is, there is a lot of opportunity for people to build new businesses, right? Now you can question the valuations, but you can't question the opportunity. There is a lot of action in the digital sort of space. Every company wants to be a digital company. So what I keep telling people is that every digital company wants to be a data company, and every non-IT company or non-digital company wants to be a digital company going forward. That's the trend. A lot of the demand we are seeing for IT talent is actually from non-IT companies today, right? So even the big four, the consulting firms, they are hiring IT professionals. Banks are hiring IT professionals. Retailers are hiring IT professionals, right? Insurance companies are hiring IT professionals, stroke digital professionals. So it's now become mainstream. It's like, every company needs to hire this kind of talent. As far as unicorns and startups go, see, they, were never big hirers to start with. It's not as if they hire in large volumes, right? The volume hirers have always been the IT services companies, right? So if there are 5 million people or 10 million people or whatever number of people who work in IT in the IT space, maybe 95% of them work for the services companies. The unicorns and the startups, they try and hire better quality talent. They want to hire high-end engineers, high-end data scientists, etc. There the salaries are at a different level altogether. So I don't see even that slowing down, because companies need to now justify their valuations. They have sort of gotten over time. They need to invest even more, in my view, in building strong digital platforms Maybe they will cut their burn a little bit. They will spend less on customer acquisition. They might spend less on giving discounts. They might sort of cut down some of those things. But they need to keep investing in their platforms, and that is what requires IT talent. So I don't see that demand going down.
Got it. Interesting. Sriram, yeah, and as you said, IT services companies have always been the volume hirers. In fact, TCS itself has over 500,000 employees currently. So that's the scale at which they operate. Sriram, as someone who has worked in the IT industry for a long time, and now you're on the recruitment side, um, is this a tipping point of sorts? Hitesh described it as the most significant growth that he's seen in 15 years. So, do you see this sustaining? Do you see the momentum sort of lasting for the next few years? Have we just entered a super cycle, so to speak?
See, all indications that we have today from at least the customers that we work with, right? Every quarter we get at least, can you service 2x of what you did the previous quarter? And that's so we don't see any sign of slowdown. And if you look at the large companies' earnings transcripts, so some of them are growing at almost 6-7% quarter on quarter, which is unheard of. That's again, once in a few years type phenomenon. And recovering from the pandemic, this surge in growth with a steady supply sort of created this disparity. And to Dr. Ritu Anand's point, right, you can either be a company that is creating capacity or a company that is borrowing capacity. So if you're in a round robin type hiring mode, you're hiring off of each other, and you're dipping into the same talent pool. But if you're willing to create new talent through let's say a returnship or a higher trained employee, one has to create fresh capacity, and that capacity is available. But if you're going and looking at the same talent for here and now with a short term view of meeting your quarter on quarter growth demands, and that's where this whole demand supply crunch or the seemingly shortage of supply is coming through. But otherwise, we don't see any dip in demand, at least for the foreseeable future. A lot more digital transformation work is coming, and with uh, remote work going mainstream, and the absence of ODCs and things like that, that has allowed for a lot more globalization of the workforce, that where India is taking advantage of the demographic dividend, I guess.
Right. Abhimanyu, what does all this mean for us, an edtech like yours, Scalar Academy, which is focused on upskilling? And we've seen sort of a bunch of these edtechs come up which are focusing on skilling, reskilling, upskilling. You have Masai School, Scalar, Stoa, and so on. What kind of opportunity does this present to you? Because tech is also rapidly evolving, the needs are evolving. For example, we were speaking to Infosys yesterday, and they told us they've discovered 100 use cases for the metaverse, and now they are hiring for that. So what kind of opportunities does this present for a Scalar Academy?
Right. To answer that, maybe there are a couple of points that speakers earlier made, and I'll maybe connect those dots. Uh, as Chandra mentioned, that there is no shortage of talent, and as Hitesh later mentioned, that it depends on how do you define talent. If we talk about in our country, do we have people who can do things? They definitely are capable of, but can they do those things today? Probably, unfortunately, all the graduates who come out of universities, colleges, a very small percentage, and this have been come up in multiple studies, that a very small percentage is someone who can be put at the job on day zero and can do things. The second point, which is about the demand, that of course, as of today, we see a massive amount of demand, but is going to sustain? Is it going to increase? Is it going to increase? I'll take an example on that. As of today, the biggest automobile company in the world is Tesla. It's not Mercedes, it's not Audi, it's not BMW, it's not even Mahindra or Tata, who have been doing this for decades. The reason for that is Tesla is not just an automobile company. It's a company which have married IT and technology with automobile. And this is going to double down for every single industry. Every single industry has to become a strong IT company to be kind of, become the leader in this space. that is going to ensure that every single company needs a lot of people strong in IT and software technology. There are estimates that by year 2028, the world will have 80 million software engineering jobs. What I am also very bullish on is that a lot of those jobs are going to be based in India. Of course, all the remote work, the world has for technology jobs, the world have become very flat. It have become a borderless job. A lot of these are going to be not just focused in say US or Europe, but a lot of these jobs are going to be very evenly distributed across the world. Now, where does this upskilling, companies like ours come into the play? In countries like ours, we have a large, youth population. Last year, for example, 2.2 million people, 22 lakhs people wrote IIT JEE exam. As Hitesh was mentioning, there are, maybe 12, 14, 16 lakh people who are graduating with an engineering degree. Unfortunately, almost 95 to 98% of them cannot be put into the job on day zero. While we have, the companies like TCS, Infosys, Wipro, etc., have done a massive value addition in nation building by setting up large training center, investing hundreds of millions of dollars in setting up these training centers to, people who have graduated. They will train them for 6 months, 9 months, get them to a stage where these people can actually start contributing to projects. But most of the smaller organizations cannot really afford that. And that is why most of these startups, smaller setups, they try to hire people who can start contributing to projects on day zero. Companies like ours, we've bridged that gap between academia and what is needed in industry. Although maybe TCS and Infosys are powerful enough, capable enough, or even they have the will and resolve to invest to kind of, make people have that transition, that bridge. But for the overall industry, there is a necessity for companies like ours to exist, which can take people from, whatever they might have done in their college and make them the best engineers in the world, not just better engineers, but the kind of engineers that probably have built companies like Google and Facebook. And that is the bridge that we are trying to be, the bridge between academia and industry. Unfortunately, we all have to admit that there's a massive gap that has gotten created between academia and industry, and we are building that bridge.
Right. Dr. Ritu Anand, will you consider hiring someone who's not done an engineering course, but who has perhaps done a course at Scalar Academy or an online, coding camp like Masai School? Will you prefer talent over degrees, contrary to what the trend has been all these years?
I remember in 19, maybe let's say 20, 22 years ago, from pure comp science, electronics, IT technically, we moved to work in different lines of businesses. At that time, we needed bankers, we needed retailers, we needed hospitality industry professionals, domain industry advisors, and then opened the doors for non IT, IIT, regional engineering colleges, and all those, the typical BTech type of people, because the industry opened the doors for diverse kind of experienced people, because domain is needed for technology to succeed. Domain of business is needed for business of technology to succeed. Technology started becoming a business rather than an expense spend, and that opened the door. Why am I going back to that era to answer your question? Is we have jobs for everybody. Our philosophy has been to hire and graduates, IT and non-IT, and train them to provide them opportunities. Even back then and even now more so, we not we once you are in TCS, we haven't provided you a job, but we have provided you a career opportunity. We have provided you a career. Options are given, opportunities are given, and you carve a niche for yourself. 10 years ago or thereabout, when the back office gained a lot of momentum in India, TCS and our other IT companies were not far behind to hire non IT grads. And that continues even now. And I think Hitesh did allude to it, though did not expand, that we actually need people of all kinds, graduates in science, graduates in IT, graduates in businesses. We need graduates who are in management for doing lot of jobs that we do for our customers. We need graduates and postgraduates in IT and non-IT. So it's not something new that we are going to do, or we haven't been doing it. The only unique selling that some of us are doing it, I'm not saying only TCS, but many, is that we give opportunities to young grads and build them with specific training to do a kind of job. And trust me, Chandra, that after 3 to 5 years or thereabout, they laterally move to do things which they otherwise would not have done if they were if they were not IT grads. So that is the answer I will give, that there is today the individual individual attributes have become, and that is my definition, become very important, equally if not more. So if you have an attitude, if you have the passion, if you have the keenness and basic grasping power to learn, sky is the limit for you. Have we lost Chandra? I think we have.
I think there is some
Yeah.
internet connectivity.
Yeah. So, my very big personal opinion and belief is, having been in TCS all my life, is that if the person has those 4 5 attributes, sky is the limit today. Because I am seeing a demand for domain expertise, even at 5 to 10 years experience level, Abhimanyu, because I'm seeing that to write a code, the business understanding is most important. And I'm so glad to see that it's not only the management graduates and strategic intended people, but it is the domain people who are getting into IT in a big way, not now, but earlier also. So
Right. Hitesh, Hitesh, if you can, expand on that in terms of, you're seeing a huge volume of job inquiries happening. Have the demands changed on the client side? Like, are they flexible when it comes to degrees, vis-a-vis talent? Are you already seeing that mindset shift as we are entering the super cycle and as the volume of jobs is only going to go up?
See, Chandra, necessity is the mother of all invention. I've always believed in that. So, like Dr. Ritu Anand said, see, 25 years ago, when TCS and Wipro and Infosys used to go to campus, they used to say, listen, we want to hire computer science graduates from IIT, you know. And then, of course, demand grew. Then they said, okay, we are okay to hire even non-computer science graduates, but you have to be from IIT, right? Then demand grew further. Then they said, okay, because see, IITs are not able to expand capacity, right? Then they said, okay, we can hire you from an NIT also, and but you have to be a computer science graduate. Then they said, okay, anybody from any NIT, any IIT will do, as long as we'll teach you, we'll train you. If you have the right attitude, if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to, we'll train you.
No, then they
And
started
so
hiring
today,
civil engineering graduates and then arts graduates.
exactly,
We will train anyone basically with,
exactly.
I mean,
So
great.
absolutely. And 15 years ago, this was a joke that if you are seen outside an IT company, you're in danger of getting hired.
No, no, there
That's
is a
how,
very famous meme. So there is a building of TCS and there is a person outside that, trespassers will be recruited. So I think that's the
exactly,
that's the
exactly.
Hitesh,
time.
on a serious
Sorry.
note, Hitesh, that is India's story.
Exactly, exactly.
Absolutely.
Now, see, if you ask me, I don't think you need to be even an engineer to do a lot of the work which sort of IT companies get. As like Dr. Ritu said, if you have the right attitude, if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to, if you're passionate about the subject, about doing well, you can pick up some of these skills, over time, right? As long as you're sort of willing to do that job. Uh, Now, will sort of this sort of cycle force IT companies to say, listen, we are happy to hire anybody for this job, we'll train you, and we'll teach you, and we'll hire a scalar academy, or we'll do it in house, and we'll skill you, and you can hit the deck running in a year or 2 years maybe. Who knows? I don't think. I'll tell you. See, I went to engineering college myself many years ago. I did not, of course, practice engineering in my career. But even today, I can tell you 70% of the stuff which is taught in engineering colleges, or maybe even more, is not relevant to what people end up doing later.
Yeah.
Right? So I think the whole model may change going forward, where the model could actually become, listen, you can, you do okay 1 or 2 years of college, and then you start working, and then over time you acquire more skills, because skills change. The kind of skills you need to sort of succeed today may not be actually taught in engineering colleges. The technology changes rapidly, evolves rapidly, and then you go back to doing courses every now and then from a coding ninja or a scalar academy or whatever out there, right? Whatever sort of schools are available out there. This could happen. Now, I think why it is not happening today, if you ask me, it has nothing to do with business. It's a social thing more than anything else. Degrees are valued not just by companies; they're valued socially, as well. So if you want to get married, it helps if you're an engineer or an MBA. So whether you end up actually acquiring the skills you need to succeed in the workplace at those colleges is a separate issue.
Yeah, Hitesh, actually, I want Abhimanyu to come in here, because I think there are class 12 pass outs who go to Scalar and then get hired. So are they worried ki, will this affect my kind of matrimonial prospects if I don't have a
Right.
degree and I still have a job?
No, so I
Abhimanyu,
have
what
two.
explains
Yeah,
this trend?
I have two very interesting anecdotes, although, to talk about here. One is, recently we built something called, which we internally call as Fair Play. We spoke to quite a few, even the startups which are paying the big bucks. Maybe like if I put some numbers, companies which are willing to pay a 20 to 30 lakh salary to fresh college grad. We told them that what if we evaluate people on exact hiring process that you follow. We only send in people to you who we can certify that have already clear rounds of evaluations on exact same interviews that you do. However, our condition to that is that you will have to take their interviews without having seen their resume, or without knowing that which university did they go to, which degree did they do, or whether even they have a degree or not. After doing your 4 or 5 rounds of interviews in that way, you can let us know whether you want to hire or not. And if you say that we want to hire, then probably we can give you more details and you can do the background check, etc. Almost 50 people were made job offers in this model in last 2 months. So, like, a lot of employers are clearly.
Abhimanyu, how old are these people who are getting 25 to 30 lakhs without a degree?
Typically, no. So one caveat here: these 50 people I'm talking about, they might or might not have a degree, but the companies didn't know when making the offer whether they have the degree or not.
Okay, these are startups, I'm assuming.
There are some larger organizations as well. Post IPO companies. These are young startups. There's a good mix of companies who did that. The typical age range would be 22 to 28. Now, if you see that having a salary of 25, 30, 35 lakhs in this age bracket is not something very common. And this is also a function of for technology, it is becoming a flat world. A company like, let's say, Khatabook, etc., they are creating the same impact as a company in San Francisco is creating. And hence they are happy paying almost the same salaries. That is one. The other one is that recently, I was speaking to someone, and this guy, again, similar situation, a BCom degree from a nondescript college, however, working at Google. Now, today, even the social dynamics are also changing, that if you work for Google, no one cares. Whether you went to college, you didn't go to college. There is a meme, of course, these younger generation talk in the language of memes, right? There's a meme that I recently saw, which I didn't quite appreciate, but it said, if you work for Mang is the acronym for, the Meta and Amazon. And so if you work for Mang, your girlfriend mom will definitely say, ki go, beta, go fill the Mang. So these memes do indicate, that social structure, social dynamics. Earlier, we might say that if you're an IIT graduate, if you are a, IIM graduate, then probably you have better marriage prospects. Today, probably that has shifted to whether you work for a Facebook or Amazon or Apple or Netflix or not. So yeah, there is very clear change in the social dynamics that we do see.
Right. Sriram, are you seeing this shift as you kind of recruit for company A, company B, company C?
In fact, I was just going to say we actually know of companies that hire. They have a very solid high school hiring program. Um,
Okay.
so they
I think
bank up.
Zoho would be one, but Zoho's program is very different, where they have their own Zoho University. Yeah.
Yeah, so HCL, they've actually diversified their talent pool into tier two, tier three towns to
Yeah.
tap into talent there and hire high school folks and put them on a 3-year, distance education program with one of the universities while they pick up skills in parallel that that sort of has a work integrated learning program type model. But when it comes to hiring people at the lateral level, that sort of is not mainstream yet. While there may be exceptions to the rule, and if you have the sufficient experience and the expertise, one may tend to overlook the need for a degree, but that's not very prevalent. You still are looking at, at some point in time, I have to process your visa, and you need something to, you need at least a 15-year education plus or a 16-year education plus some amount of experience. That sort of plays into people's mind, especially the services folks that we work with. Like Abhimanyu said, there are product companies that sort of are indifferent as long as you have the right skills, the right foundational problem solving capabilities. That is not so much of a requirement, but for mainstream work, and there is an end customer at the end of that supply chain who demands a certain set of qualifications and job descriptions. You need to meet that demand. Like I said, the high school hiring is still, I'd say, a work in progress. With some of the larger companies in the product side, uh, open to the idea, and some of the larger companies are putting a program in place to sort of tap into that talent. But it's still not going the rounds where you could just not put, let's say, thousands of high school folks into a mainstream job market.
Got it.
Chandra, I can tell you one thing. I've been, 18-year-olds have been sending us business plans, and they want funding for those plans. And, these are plans in Web 3.0 and, stuff like that. So things are changing, on the ground for sure.
Yeah. Hitesh, I know you have a hard stop in 5 minutes, so I'm just going to take, the last couple of questions with you before I circle back to the other panelists. The one thing that I wanted to ask you was, there was always this sense that, this linearity between growth in tech and hiring will sort of come down at some point, that, there will be non-linear growth. But the trend that we have seen in the last year clearly shows that, that linearity is here to stay. Higher growth will require a larger volume of talent. Do you expect this to continue even with the advent of AI and ML and all these emerging technologies? And secondly, I'm sure a lot of our viewers would want to know this. What are the hottest skills at this point for people to land a job? I mean, in Naukri, what are the top trending skills? If you can help us with that cheat sheet, then we will let you go after that.
Yeah. To answer your first question, if you recall, 2-3 years ago, just before we went into COVID, there was a lot of noise around, Indian IT services companies losing out in the long run because of automation, because of AI, because of these new trends, which will result in sort of, a lesser demand for people in IT services. And that's not how it's played out. In fact, what we're seeing is the exact opposite, right? So, and 15, 20 years ago, people used to say, listen, everything gets automated, there'll be fewer jobs and so on and so forth. And, there are more computers. And so the truth is, and what people have to understand is that every time there's a new technology, the technology business is actually tiny, but there's always an opportunity to build a large services business around that technology, right? And which is what you're seeing. So, why the number of people who actually understand AI and who really sort of are have a deep understanding of AI, maybe in India is it a few hundreds, if or maybe at max a few thousand. There's maybe is an opportunity to build a large AI services business, or the services business around AI, around machine learning, around analytics, and you're seeing that happening, right? digital technologies, the number of people who actually, get those core technologies are very, very few. But there's a large services industry which is sort of which is now built around digital. So my sense is that as long as there's a lot of, there are new technologies which keep hitting the market from time to time. We got the internet 25, 30 years ago, then we got smartphones, mobiles, now we have AI, machine learning. Going forward, we'll have 5 others. I think the services industry around these technologies will only grow, and that will lead to more and more demand. The technologies may change over time. Maybe 20 years ago, people were sort of running after Fortran and COBOL programmers. Today, they're running after Python programmers. So those things may change, but the industry, I think, just keeps growing and growing and growing and keeps surprising everybody, and that's unlikely to change in my view going forward. So, as far as what technologies are likely to be in demand going forward, what we are seeing on our platform today, data, analytics, big data, machine learning, AI. Clearly, there's likely to be a lot of demand for these kind of people going forward. Mobile developers continue to be in demand. I mean, if you don't have an app today, you don't really have a business, right? That's very, very clear. So if every small, retailer wants to build an app today, right? If I have a neighborhood sort of, a guy from whom I buy a sort of meat and chicken and eggs, I mean, that guy also wants to build something to compete with Delicious, for example, right? You're seeing this everywhere. So technology is all pervasive, entering every area, every domain. You have agri-tech companies, you have Dukaan tech, your marketing tech, sales tech, HR tech, space tech, defense tech, clean tech. Now, every area, you have sort of companies emerging.
You have, now you have milk tech also. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So demand for mobile developers continues to sort of be very, very high. Data, like I said, every digital company wants to be a data company going forward. So anything to do with data, whether it's in the area of data management or data visualization or presentation or data analytics or machine learning, these skills will be in demand going forward. Then, there's a lot of action on the cloud side of things. So anything to do with the cloud will be in demand going forward. That's what we're seeing on Naukri as well. Now, the software may keep changing, the languages may keep changing, but these are the hot areas for the future, which that's where we are seeing action on Naukri today. Going forward, there could be other areas which become interesting over time. Right now, they're tiny. In India, we are beginning to see action in a lot of deep tech sort of spaces, which was not something we saw 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But right now, those areas are tiny. But I think some of those areas will also become big over time.
In fact, I wanted to add that I don't know if you listen into the Wipro's earnings with Thierry, right? 50% of the business that they're going to get is from their alliance partners, which is whether it's Microsoft or Salesforce or Amazon or Google. So services wrapped around these large SaaS or product players is also another area of growth that you will see.
Right.
Chandra, can I log out now?
Yes,
Okay,
Hitesh,
fine.
thank you very much for being part of it. But I'm going to request our other speakers to be here. But Hitesh, thank you as always for joining us with your insights. Dr.
Thank you,
Anand,
guys.
yeah. Dr. Anand, the other thing that I wanted to ask you about is, when this whole talk about hybrid work and remote work started, when the conversation started, there was a lot of expectation that, this is a blessing in disguise to make workplaces more diverse, to bring back more women into the workforce, women who had perhaps dropped out for some reason. So are you seeing that happening, or, again, have those things been exaggerated? Because a lot of people also say that the pandemic has been very hard on women because they've basically had to do everything, and they're exhausted all around. A lot of women also dropped out of the workforce post pandemic because schools were shut, so they had to end up doing many things at home. So what trends are you observing? Do you believe that this is an opportunity to make workforce more diverse, to bring back more women into the workforce?
Chandra, this is the time for each individual, man or a woman, to take charge of her or his career, okay, and her workplace. Hybrid working has taken us a lot closer to create sustainable workplaces and inclusive growth. And I will explain what I mean with that. This is actually beyond men and women or any gender. The examples which you cite are real, true examples. More for women in some societies, and more for men, or equally for men in some societies. So my personal experience that I'm seeing is that there are more opportunities now for caregivers to remain and join workforce, and to achieve their dreams and go for their aspirations. And companies are lapping up such aspiring individuals. I want to be very specific that it's not only about women, and it's not only about men. It is actually about for everybody, and any and everybody who has taken a step back from the workforce because of caregiving, or for chasing their personal hobbies, they want to come back. This is the time. I also want to put it out beyond gender diversity. There is people who have different abilities. This is a golden period for them. While we were all planning and we did whatever companies have done, but pandemic opened the doors for many such people for whom physical in-person commute was not an option. And for them, this has proved a boon. They can be at their place wherever they are, and actually contribute to the work and earn a living like you and me. And that kind of discrimination or embarrassment, or being left out, which they could have felt otherwise, that absolutely vanished. So in some, I would say that in earlier part of the pandemic, there was early success. Women actually felt, oh my god, this is an opportunity for me to continue to do work, and also on the side look after my elders or my children and manage the household. But as the time passed by and it became a longish type of a period, both things have happened, which I explained to you. And collectively, I would also say that while I earlier on I spoke about aptitude and attitude, today I'm saying that this is the time for somebody to quickly grasp the digital skills, because every course, whether it is by scalar or by actual degree course, digital element has come in the last, I would say, more than 2 years, 3 4 years. So today, and there is demand for digital skills in anything and everything. The which college you come from, which city you come from, what course you have done has no meaning. A lot of young children, I'm sure they are coming to Sriram also, and Abhimanyu also. They come to me and ask me, my extended family or friends. I actually take a pause and I say, what do I answer when they ask me what course and specialization I should do? Because there is demand for everything with the digital element. So if you have a passion and you have a purpose of a career, this is the time for you, man or a woman or anybody else, able or disabled, oriented or otherwise. Everybody has a job today. And that will is a big boost for inclusion and embracing all the differences that we have been talking about for decades, and have not reached a stage of parity, or even I would say 50-50.
Right, very, very interesting insights, particularly the fact that, it's not about man or woman, but anyone, differently able people, it's a huge opportunity that's opened up. The other part of inclusion, and, Sriram, Abhimanyu, and perhaps Dr. Anand can also add to this, is that people said that, this will open up jobs across the length and breadth of India. It's not just going to be the top 7 cities, the top 8 cities, that, it is not going to be a short term thing, but long term, it is going to open up opportunities in smaller towns, smaller cities. So again, are you seeing that phenomenon, Abhimanyu, in terms of the students who come to you, and Sriram, perhaps you can chime in as well.
Right. One interesting pattern that we have seen, that post pandemic, a very positive effect of, as a side effect was, not only it has massively promoted work from home, it has also massively promoted the concept of learn from home. So imagine a woman, who, let's say, for whatever reason discontinued the career, Considering that I would enroll for a university and, let's say go to a physical university for a year or two, is a very big decision. However, if they have an opportunity to, let's say, join an entirely virtual program where they can do live classes every single day right from their home, they can get mentored by someone right from their home. Of course, Geo, etc., the massive penetration of high-speed internet into each household has enabled that massively. What that means is that even if someone has been out of the workforce for 5, 10 years, they can easily just sitting at their home can invest time for 6 months or 9 months, upskill themselves, get back to the same level where they can join an industry, any company, start contributing back at the same level. Uh, that has actually made a lot of women, and as not just women, but across the diversity. Like even if I'm disabled, I do not have to be worried about that. How would I commute every day? I can learn sitting at my home for 6 months, 9 months, a year. I can get back into the workforce. I can continue working from home. So definitely, it is a massive enabler. It is not only at the grassroots level. Even in our own company, we are kind of completely remote as of today. When I look at where are people working from, if we just try to do a IP mapping, we would see a good chunk, 30-40% of them are sitting in a tier 3 towns, which were their hometowns, and working from there. Now, this also ensures that there's a trickle-down economy effect happening. That these people at really good salaries, if they are living in a tier 3 town working from there, they're going to contribute massively to their local economies as well. So overall, this impact of work from home, learn from home, it is going to. I am very confident that in few years we are going to see huge positive impact on overall grassroots economic growth of the country as well.
Right. Sriram, while this work from home, learn from home is fine, companies are now increasingly saying that, they also need people to come back to offices to build social capital and so on. So, do you still see campuses being relevant? How do you see this changing? If you can give us perspective, and of course, Dr. Anand can also add to this.
See, obviously you can't take away the importance of social interaction from being part of an organization. The whole fabric of being part of an organization is to actually connect frequently, meet each other, go out for lunches, and those are the kind of things that perhaps the pandemic took away. Right. In fact, we know of people who've joined MBA in 2020. They've completed an MBA. They've not even seen the campus. Right. Uh, so very similar in workplace too. While companies are looking at bringing people back, there is also this hesitation because many of these folks that came from remote towns to work in a city, whether it's Bangalore or Chennai or Pune or Delhi, uh, they've they've somehow managed to make them productive from wherever they were, right? And the industry did not have any drop in utilization. There was no customer escalations because people started delivering work from home. So once remote work has become mainstream, it's going to be very difficult to get 100% of the people back because there's a certain level of comfort that people have had staying where they are. So what may eventually happen is there would be a combination or they call it phygital, right? Part physical, it's going to be hybrid. What part of the workforce that comes to work and what chooses to remain wherever they are. Those, I think, the companies would be drawing up policies to ensure that there is a healthy balance of people coming in, and there's a healthy balance of flexibility that is available for people that are not able to come. So it's going to be, that's why it's kind of unique, because your entire talent engagement plan has to be tailored around the fact that at any point in time, not everybody is going to be at work.
Right. Dr. Anand, how difficult is it to get people back to campus? We met, I think, NGS a few months ago, and he said, senior executives have started coming in. But do you see a lot of resistance from the younger lot, the freshers, so to speak?
I will give this answer. I know
I
you
think
have
you're
been
on.
talking to. I don't you I know you have been talking to our executives, but I would say it the other way around. Companies will do, companies have been doing, and that's what they have to do. I will talk to the young students or young employees who are listening. That If you have not been going to office and this is your first job, it will be uncomfortable for you to give up your comfort of being in pajamas and work from home and still get paid. But this level of a little bit discomfort at this stage actually will bear you very, very good fruits for all your life if you went to office and raise your hand for this. Why I'm saying this is that companies have written policies, they will get them back, but that's not what young people want. Young people want what they want. So I am hence talking to all of you, prospective and existing employees, that you are missing out on the fun. The fun start from the minute you get into the office, the air conditioned office. Most of the offices are air conditioned. You get into office, you get a coffee variety, tea variety. You get to talk to people, girls and boys, able and disabled, young and old. You get to learn. First 10 years of your life, if you made yourself uncomfortable, the remaining 30 years of your professional life will be like a dream. Trust me on this. And that is my message, Chandra. Yes, as a company, people are trickling
Right.
in. People are trickling
Right.
in. People will come in because bonding is some social bonding, or being with each other gives happiness. It inspires you, and it is two very key ingredients for mental well-being. So very soon you will see people will start coming in, and successful companies will not measure by percentage. Chandra will not ask for the percentage. We are looking for hybrid work, anytime, anywhere, productivity, passion, and perseverance.
In fact,
Got it.
additional point.
Let's hope people, accept that pitch. Yeah, Sriram.
No, I'm just saying, take my own example, right? We are a microcosm of the industry, and we have, let's say, a little over 1,000 people. We shut down office only for whatever the total lockdown that was imposed. The first lockdown 68 days, and the second lockdown 1 month. Otherwise, we have 100% attendance, and we made the office open. And once a few people started coming in, and it felt so good that they got all their friends to come in. So now people don't want to go back home, right? If there is a lockdown, they actually feel unhappy not coming to work. So it's just that matter of getting adjusted to, once you get into the office and you start getting to work in a group, it probably may be very difficult to go back to that hometown feel. It was just that trigger, right? So the minute
Right.
you sort of
Right.
get used to
Um,
it.
Right. We're winding down to the last few minutes. I started by talking about the IT super cycle, how this is expected to be $350 billion in revenue by 2026. Abhimanyu and Sriram, if both of you can give us a sense of the hottest skills that will be in demand in the next few years, what should graduates look at, or non-graduates look at, to really make the best of the war for talent? What would your tips and tricks be? Perhaps Abhimanyu can start and Sriram can end.
Right. In the software industry, in the IT industry, what one transition that we are seeing, particularly happening in India, that while in the previous few decades the back office operations was a major part of the business, there might be big applications, mainframes, etc., built out, and we would be mostly maintaining them over time. One big transition that we see happening is that we're very quickly, the advent of technologies like Web3, data science, AI, ML, even software product development. Now India is becoming the center where these products are being developed from scratch for the new age economy. Uh, and with that, lot more companies need skills where you can build products. Even for example, and this is distributed all across. Even if we talk about, let's say, young startup, they want people who can build a product, who have not only they know coding, they also have the product thinking, that they also have the user empathy, that when someone is using this application, how is this application going to help the user? Is this the best user experience for the user? right? As I think Dr. Anand was also mentioning, that the domain knowledge, understanding the domain knowledge as well, not just that I know a programming language, but can you empathize with the person who is going to use the product that you are working on? And what that requires is very strong command on the fundamentals. The technologies, the frameworks, they will keep coming and going. But if you are fundamentally a good problem solver, if you understand, have the domain knowledge, that is, and what we have seen is large companies, startups alike, the best employers only look for that. The best employers in the industry, be it in the product industry, be it in the service industry, they look for strong fundamentals. They would not be evaluating you too heavily on whether you know a specific language and framework or not.
Yeah, I just echo that because most of the companies that are looking to hire at volume today, um, it is impossible to get 100% fit every time, right? So you have to look for a near fit, and the near fit is going to be decided based on strong foundational skills, right? Which is problem solving, analytical thinking, reasoning. Are you able to apply your mind with solving some of these problems? Now, if you have that foundational characteristic and you are a near fit, your companies are still willing to invest in upskilling you as after they hire you, right? To that extent, there is there is an appetite to invest, hiring people from the market which are not 100% fit. More than anything else, what we are seeing is the demand for digital talent. While it's digital is very loosely defined, right? It pretty much contains everything today. So whether it's what he said, data or cloud native development or products, SaaS products like a Salesforce, like an Azure or AWS, and the numerous products that each of these guys have within. Uh, you can learn any of these things within a matter of 4 to 8 to 12 weeks, depending on the complexity, as long as you have those foundational skills. And all of these skills are in demand today, right? Today, you are either doing a legacy modernization, cloud transformation. So there is a little bit of those old skills that you need, and also migrate those to newer platforms. So at least at this point in time, as long as you have foundational skills, even if you are in a so-called not in demand skill, you would still be able to get a premium in the market, because some of those older skills are required for you to transition older applications into newer foundational technologies. So yeah, whatever you are, as long as you have those foundational skills, you are in demand.
Right. As long as you have foundational skills, you are in demand. And I think that's going to be the case for the next decade as well. If we look at the tech super cycle and the growth estimates that we are seeing from various industry bodies. But on that note, thank you all very much for joining us on Money Control Masterclass to really decode the IT tech super cycle and the second order impact that this is going to have in terms of job creation, employment, and growth in India. Thank you all very much for joining us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for hosting us, Chandra. Bye bye.